Good evening and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly hangout where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The standard disclaimer applies. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. Tonight we are soliciting questions and comments from you via Twitter at Mason Roundtable and or on the Facebook page or with the hashtag TMR episode 30. TMR episode 30. We have made it to 30 episodes. That's fantastic. We'll begin with a short round of introductions. My name is John Ruark. I'm a member of the Patriot Lodge number 1957, a member of Herndon Lodge number 264, and big news, this weekend I joined another lodge, the A. Douglas Smith Lodge of Research down in Alexandria. So I'm like Nick, I keep going. With that, I'll hand it off to Jason.
Thanks, John. My name's Jason Richards. I am the Senior Deacon of Acacia Lodge number 16 in Clifton, Virginia. I'm also a member of the Patriot Lodge number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia, and I have not joined any new lodges in the past week.
This week. All right, Juan.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Juan Sepulveda, and I am a member of Iola Lodge number 207 in Orlando, Florida, and I am the host of the Masonic podcast, The Winding Stairs.
Excellent. Nick.
I'm Nick Johnson, past master of Corinthian Lodge number 67 in Big Time Farmington, and apparently I'm in a bomb shelter.
I have that Super Soaker, by the way. That's an awesome Super Soaker. Finally, Robert Johnson.
Brother Robert Johnson here from Waukegan Lodge number 78 in Waukegan, Illinois, the senior warden there and the host of Whence Came You podcast.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us, guys. Let's start off with Masonic news. We have quite a bit of awesome things to tell you about. First and foremost, we have crossed the next threshold of 2,000 likes on Facebook. It's amazing how far we've come in just a short period of time. We really appreciate the support. You guys rock. So keep sharing these if you like these with your friends. And we do this because we love to do it and we love to hear from you. With that, I also want to transition and do two quick shout-outs for David Lycum and Steve Harrison for their continued support of the show. They are active contributors to the show, and we really do appreciate it. It helps us keep going. So thank you again. RJ, you want to talk a bit about the Masonic Radio Theater?
Sure. So not too long ago, I know you guys did a shout-out to it last week. I really appreciate that when I wasn't able to be here. Basically, seriously, I thought I was going to be a special guest now. Bill Hosler, one of the main contributors to the Midnight Freemasons, our regular contributor rather, writes Masonic fiction. So we kind of came up with the idea of maybe turning these into radio plays based on his love of the radio dramas, or actually old radio comedies of yesteryear, and I like the old radio sci-fi series. It doesn't get any better than that to me. So we kind of hashed this out. We got a script together. We've put these scripts went out to several Masons around the country, recording their parts to these, and they are going to be stitched together, edited. And the beauty is we didn't really have to worry about anybody's technological know-how because the worse the audio, the better. It's a completely lo-fi type experience. If you guys could imagine the radio dramas of the 1930s with the record, kind of making popping noises and things behind and a little bit of the haze. That's kind of what's going on in the episodes. But the stories are all Masonic. So the first one that we've got coming up is called The Craftsman. Even Jason Richards has got a part in that one, which will be really fun.
Ooh.
After sending the audio to RJ today, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be on any subsequent ones.
Or what I said, low quality, baby.
Can you promise that?
Yeah.
I might listen.
So basically, these are going to be. We've got a series of the next one's already been written, a rough draft of it anyway, and the next one will be the first one is called The Craftsman. It's kind of a murder mystery type thing. The second one's going to be a comedy, and the third one is going to be a very huge type one. It might even be a two-parter because it's going to involve, believe it or not, a possible lodge of gold, El Dorado Lodge. Set in the Old West, we're going to look for the lost El Dorado Lodge. So we'll have maybe the Old West characters of Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp being supposed Masons, although I don't think they were. We're going to roll with it anyway and say they were Lodge brothers looking for this thing.
So the big question is, ETA.
ETA. Just trying to get all the parts from everybody. Got to stitch it all together. So we're looking at probably end of September to get our first episode out, and it's going to be featured on Whence Came You with the first episode to get it out there, and it's also going to be released simultaneously on its own podcast.
That's great.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Very cool. Moving on. Unfortunately, also in the news this week, we had the third Masonic fire, believed to be arson, this year. We talked about all these fires going on in early episodes, and yet here we are. I mean, things happen in threes. Why? Because we're Masonic. But unfortunately, yet again, I think an entire lodge was burned down here, down in Alabama, or not Atlanta. Georgia. Yeah. So unfortunately, they're doing an investigation, and $10,000 reward is being offered for information that leads to the arrest. This is just crazy. I don't know what's going on with this year, but it's very sad to see some of the behaviors and ideologies that are going on that would cause people to do this. Guys, thought?
It's just real bummer, you know. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, guys.
No, I was going to say it also highlights the need for lodge security. I mean, if you don't have some sort of updated security system for your lodge, you know, at least, you know, modern locks, the combination to which can't be easily guessed, you need to get that done, because there are crazies out there. Most lodges are made of wood, despite us being stonemasons. Yeah. So just, you know, check your security, make sure you're not being stupid. Because coming from a lodge that lost its building, it is a massive pain in the butt to get a new one, and we'll be paying on that for quite some time.
Yep. Okay. Also, Jason, you want to talk about the article on NPR?
Yes, NPR had a great little article called something to the effect of Freemasonry is alive and well and mostly men only. The mostly was because they're talking about Eastern Star, and they're talking about that as the female branch of Masonry, which, you know, isn't quite accurate, but close enough for, you know, non-Masonic editorialism. So it was a nice little article. Check it out. We'll have it in the show notes. I just think it's so funny that people are like, wait, Masonry's still around?
Yeah.
Like, why, yes. It never quite went away.
Yeah.
The lizard men are still here.
Lizard men.
Okay, good. So check out that article. Kind of paints us in a good light. Anyone else have anything to add to that? Okay.
I think we all want to get to the next line item from Masonic News.
All right. So who found this new podcast?
It's Robert Johnson.
Oh yeah. So being, you know, a Masonic podcaster myself, kind of doing Google searches, which you're never supposed to Google, you know, your stuff, because it's always a bummer. Find out you're never number one. But we ran across another Masonic podcast that comes out, and my first thought whenever these things come out, I say, oh boy, let me give it a listen, because I really hope it's quality and it's not like, you know, anybody bashing us or anything like that. And so I gave it a listen, and it was really good. I don't have anything bad to say about it, and I think before this, the only Masonic podcast I had ever heard that had an intro was Eric Diamond's Ex Oriente, and nothing against you, Eric. I like you. I just that theme song gets in my head too hard. So
that is definitely an earworm for sure.
So basically, this new show by brother Ty Gregory. So shout out to you, man. Nice job. And I think we might play the intro to your show right now.
Here we go.
Greetings, my brothers and my sisters. Welcome to the Talk Mason to Me podcast, episode number 1. But before we begin, check out my dope intro. Hit it.
Brothers and sisters, get ready. 3, 5, 7. It's time for you to
Talk Mason to Me.
Welcome to the podcast that meets everybody on the level and explores what's it like to be Masons and
Eastern Stars
on a daily basis. And now, your host, the illustrious Tyrone Gregory.
Damn.
I mean, just like it was really cool. The countdown was a count up 3, 5, 7. I mean, really,
that's a classic.
Great job. And his part of his sign off was, "I love all of you, and you can't do anything about it."
It's great.
He had a great show, great talking points, and I wish him all the success in the world.
Well, one of the cool things about his podcast, at least from the first episode, is that he's such an uplifting guy. He makes the point to say, you know what, this is all Masonry and it's all positive.
Yep.
And his whole mantra is just build everybody up and come to a mutual understanding of why we're in this great fraternity. And it's all the love in the world to you, man. That's great.
Absolutely.
We loved it. Keep up the good work. Last but not least, for tonight's news, Jason or Juan, why don't you talk about the symposium coming up?
On September the 20th, we will be traveling to New Wilmington, Pennsylvania, for the inaugural Masonic Education Symposium, and Brother Sean Gorley has been putting this together. And in addition to the symposium, 3 of us from the Masonic Roundtable are going to take part after the event. So we will be recording an episode that we'll release later on. And if you're in the area, we would love for you to make it over to the event so that you can be a part of the live recording. The 2 brothers that are going are Brother John and Jason, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And
we'll be there.
If we can raise enough funds, we're gonna kidnap Nick and Robert so they can go.
Yeah.
So they can go with us out there.
So it should be a good time.
Yeah,
It's gonna
it's go ahead. I say it's going to be great. They've got some great speakers. Brother Charles Harper is going to be there speaking. Brother Juan is going to be doing a great keynote presentation as well. And there's also Adam T. Osman and, of course, Sean Gorley. And they're all great Masonic authors, and it'll be fantastic.
And there are still tickets. So
Yes.
Please check out the show notes. We'll have this up as soon as tomorrow, hopefully. And there will be a link to buy tickets. There's still time. Love to see you there. Come meet us. Come meet all the other great speakers they have there. Should be a fantastic time.
Tickets are $30, and it includes breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
What a deal.
There's nowhere else on the face of the planet where you can spend $30 and get breakfast, lunch, and dinner and hang out with a bunch of cool guys.
Unless you want to be a part of my lodge and pay $60 and get 40 dinners
Oh,
for dues.
rub it in, why don't you?
Yeah, but then they have to hang out with you.
Oh,
No, it is the count.
nothing ain't free. Speaking of my great grammar I just used, this week's topic is grammar. Woo! Which is the first of the seven liberal arts and sciences which we are taught in Masonry. When combined with rhetoric and logic, they form the trivium. Tri meaning three, via three ways, so it's where three paths converge. But really, the focus is on the instructive tongue. So, with that, I'm not going to talk about three ways, I swear. That's what it means. It's Latin.
Tongues.
So how do we as Masons apply the proper use of grammar? Let's open that up. Why is grammar important for Masons?
Well, interestingly enough, when you look back at when the seven liberal arts and sciences were emphasized, it first came out in the 14th century, and grammar was more than just the art of proper writing. It really enveloped the entire continuum of communication and interpersonal communication. So when you take it at its core, grammar is the art of expression and communication. And for Masons who are trying to build each other up and become better and express new ideas and come to terms with multiple different viewpoints, grammar is foundational to who we are as a society of friends and brothers. So I think it's very appropriate that it's actually taught as the first foundational liberal arts and science.
Without it, you can't do anything. We've got grammar essentially, what most people understand it today would just be words and how to formulate them to form a not just a coherent sentence or paragraph, but if you look at words in a sense as each word is made up of a character, which is its own symbol representing a sound. Together, they come together, many symbols come together to form a word, so a complex symbol to convey a more specific idea. Whereas, we've got in Masonry symbols that illustrate compendiums based on this one thing, whereas we've got a more complex word composed of other symbols, bringing us to a individual concept.
Yeah, I like to think about it as that foundational stone. That's the very first stone you lay down in your progress to build this whole temple, and this is in regards to your own education and your growth as an individual. I like the idea of seeing both ways of the communication. For example, you're able to put together some words in a phrase in an elegant way, in an educated way, to capture the attention of the person that's listening. But by the same token, understanding the meaning of the words and the various meanings that it could have. And sometimes if you're able to follow the etymology of the word and find the root of the word, you can better understand what other people are saying and understand better the depth of the communication that they're trying to send your way. So it's that whole, you're a good, I'm thinking of the words in Spanish for whatever reason, un buen emisor y un buen receptor, the person that sends and the person that receives. It's crucial in the communication.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when we get down to it, a lot of the Masonic ritual, in order to understand it, you have to have a good command of language and grammar, because it's so arcane. I mean, you're talking about for people who aren't Masons, this is King James Version Bible speak, and in Virginia, where very little of the ritual is written down, it's all passed mouth to ear. You can't hope to get a good command of it and memorize it without having a good sense of what is actually being said there. And that's where grammar is very, very important, because whenever I teach ritual to anyone, I always break down the specific sentences into, okay, this is, this is present perfective, and this is why they're using that in this case, whereas they weren't using it, 3 sentences ago here.
Did
That's
anybody
because
catch
I'm a
that?
nerd.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's talking about. I'm so.
Oh, jeez. Is it time for the math show yet?
Yeah, I'm going to be absent on that one.
Dude, but I gotta say, Jason, I have to give you a shout out because you've worked with me on some of the grammatical pieces of ritual, and even though I actually knew the ritual because I learned it that way, I didn't know grammatically what it meant. And hearing you teach it, just it opens it up, and in fact, it's helped me understand grammar better because okay, now I can relate it to some ritual that I know.
Well, what's kind of interesting too is, when the ritual was written, it was about 100 and some years after Shakespeare, right? And there's this current movement called original pronunciation, right? And so I've been wanting to take the ritual and bring it out to the professor who's doing these translations of. Unfortunately, he's not a Mason, so I'd probably get in trouble for that. But I'd love to know what Preston, because he was the one who mainly wrote the ritual, what it actually sounded like, because I guarantee there's rhymes that we do not hear because we don't pronounce the words the exact same way. We don't frame to pronounce any of the words right that in the way that it was originally done. So I'd love to know what it would sound like at that point in time.
I can think of one example off the top of my head, but I'm not going to talk about it here.
Oh man, me too. I just thought I was like, oh. Well, there is a word. There is a word that I think. Let me think about this before I get in trouble. Well, I have spoken, before about the word hail. We hear this in some of the Masonic literature.
Yeah.
And when I did a little bit of research, because it didn't make sense to me, and I found a word that it's used in different translations, where it's heal as opposed to hail.
Mm-hmm.
And heal, the origin of the word is from actually covering, or that's the reason why when you get a wound and it gets a scab, it's healing because it's being covered or you're dressing it. So when sometimes you hear a word that people pronounce in our modern times as hail, and we think, is he saying hail like hailing a cab? I think it's a transposition of words that if at one point it used to be heal, as in conceal or cover.
Yeah. Juan, to your point, here in Illinois, what is in the ritual is the word heal, but we say hail.
Huh.
And it confuses the heck out of candidates.
Yeah. Right, so also a little bit in research for this episode, I was trying to figure out if Mackey or Pike had anything to say about grammar. And although Jason did a good shot of the Mackey's Masonic Encyclopedia, it really only has a short paragraph of what grammar is, and then just goes on to the next topic. But then I also looked through, like, say, Morals and Dogma, searched the entire thing, and they only had 2 references to grammar, and it was really just saying, hey, grammar is one of the trivium. So I found it kind of odd that there's really not a lot of mention of its place in Masonry, but it doesn't surprise me either, because the ritual that we still use today, that has been relatively unchanged throughout most of modern Freemasonry, was there for a specific reason. Then why are these seven liberal arts and sciences put there? Again, Jason alluded to earlier in the beginning of the episode that these were around since medieval times. The trivium and the quadrivium. Why do we care as Freemasons? Well, that is part of the classical education, and historically, that was what you learned in your, going up through your middle school, elementary, high school time frame. So that was an established thing. That, by the way, it was more of a reminder to say that these liberal arts and sciences are something you should continue to maintain as you go on your journey. But we, in modern times, really have lost a lot of that. We really don't teach a lot of philosophy and Greek stuff. I mentioned that in I think a previous episode. So a lot of that's lost of what the foundations are that I think the early ritualists took for granted, or at least said they understood people were coming in with that level of knowledge that they were building on top of. So the reason you don't find it much in Morals and Dogma or in some of Mackey's writings is because it was like, well, duh, everybody knows what grammar, rhetoric, and logic are, right? So
it's assumed.
Pike, right? If somebody had only told Pike that run-on sentences might not be the best.
Bazinga! Pike, you got burned.
So,
Comma, Ed, comma.
Not the first time.
He didn't care much for grammar, but he has to mention it.
if I may, there is there's a great website. It's not Masonic, and I got in contact with a gentleman a long time ago, and his name is Jarrett Sanchez, and he has a blog, and it's called triviumbinder.blogspot.com. And essentially what it is, it's a complete website, and what you can do is you can donate some money, and he will send you a binder that he puts together that teaches the trivium in this great way, going over grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And in the first section of grammar, he gives you something called Gene's Grammar Summary. There's parts of speech, English grammar cards, intro to sentence diagramming worksheets, and it's a really cool thing. So if you guys are interested, in more research on grammar, check it out. It's triviumbinder.blogspot.com. He's, like I said, he's not a Mason, but it says it's a resource for the modern trivium student. That's pretty cool.
That's
Yeah,
great.
check out the website by tomorrow, and it'll be up there.
Sweet.
Oh, there you go.
I wanted to mention something. There might be, brothers listening to this and thinking, "Oh my God, grammar," and rolling their eyes like we got to deal with this stuff, because a lot of people, that's how they feel with their experience with grammar. But I'll invite you to think about it in this way. When you start working with arithmetic, there are some very basic fundamentals that you have to dominate before you have any hopes of moving on to the more advanced forms of math. And I'm sure one of you didn't learn perhaps the table of 6, and you learned all the other ones because they rhymed and everything, and then you didn't learn that one, and you dragged not knowing the table of, I don't know how you say it in English, but multiplying 6 and 6.
Multiplication tables.
The multiplication table. So if you didn't learn the sixth one, you're going to carry that with you. There's that void, bridging the gap, branding. there's that gap that you're pulling, all throughout life. For me, it was long division. Long division was something that I kind of like, oh my God, why do I have to learn this? And I was just toiling with it, and I kind of ignored it. Next class didn't need much of it, and then it kept on showing everywhere, and even more complex, and add fractions, and add the decimals, and add the other. The same thing happens with grammar. Even though you might roll your eyes when you think about it initially, you gotta pay attention to it and try to learn as much of it as possible, so that then you're able to be a more effective master of logic. And then the same thing there. And then you move another step up. This is it's the winding stairs. Every step you gather as much knowledge as you can. You bring it with you to the next step, and every knowledge you acquire, every piece of knowledge is going to help you on the next one. And we mentioned rhetoric. And we already talked about rhetoric, and people roll their eyes about that. It's like, oh, I don't want to be a politician. You don't have to be a politician. You need to, at the very least, be able to defend yourself from someone who's trying to use rhetoric to, talk down about the fraternity or about your faith or about your family. If you can see the tools that they're employing, the fallacies that they're putting together to try to, negatively talk about you or your family or whomever, if you know what they are, you can defend yourself better. It's not just offensive; it's also defensive.
Juan, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Now you are bilingual, and I wish I was. How do you think being bilingual aids you in the search for grammar?
Well, luckily, my first language is Spanish, which is another one of the Romance languages. It has a lot of similarities with Latin. So words that for me are very obvious related to the original Latin words, for other people that only speak perhaps English or French, well, not French because French is also, but anyway, it might not be as obvious to them where the root lies. So for me, I've come across a lot of words that it's very obvious that the root is related to a Spanish or Latin word, and that helps me in my research. So I know where to go to find exactly, where it came from.
Darn you, false cognates.
I got nothing.
But Juan was making some interesting points a little while ago, talking about how everything is a step up the winding stairs. Branding.
Ooh.
And it's really interesting because yes, grammar is foundation, or is foundational. One of the great secrets of Masonry, to me at least, is the complete and utter freedom of self-expression. Nobody can tell you that your interpretation of a symbol or ritual is wrong. Many people try to tell you it's wrong, but really there's nothing behind that. All those past masters out there, I'm not falling for it.
You're wrong.
So when you think about grammar, it's like, okay, it is the art of teaching yourself to express yourself, and then you go one level up. Rhetoric is the art of discourse and learning how to interact with other people who are expressing themselves. And then logic is the art of taking a bunch of different self-expressions and figuring out what works for you. And that's what we do as Masons when we look at symbolism and the ritual. We say, okay, what is everybody's interpretation of this, and what is my own personal interpretation that works for me? And so it's blowing my mind. I'm geeking out right now because it's so awesome.
That's really cool. And if anybody says, well, no, Masonry, you're not supposed to interpret it by yourself, it has a specific meaning. Yes, it has a specific meaning, but in a way, you know what your faults are. You know what you're lacking in. So if you see a symbol that perhaps someone wrote it or drew it intending a specific message, but it opens up your eyes to recognize that which is missing within you, then it worked. It worked its magic on you. The same thing you hear popular songs, or you hear a poem, and to you it means something. You're like, oh yeah, he's definitely talking about the girl that cheated on him and he left her. But somebody else with a different life experience hears it, and to them it talks about his separation from his faith and how he misses his faith and how he knows he still wants a little bit more connection with God. He's not wrong. That's his life. It's his interpretation. It's a symbol. It lends itself for multiple interpretations.
Mm-hmm.
That's my stance at least.
All right, Jason. Let's transition. What are they saying on social media?
Social media is all abuzz tonight about John Ruark's double entendre at the beginning of the show.
It's Latin. I can't change. Oh gosh, I'm turning red again.
So yeah, we don't have a lot on social media, but honestly, this is, I think, one of the drier topics we've covered. But it's so foundational to who we are as Masons. It's so incredibly important. We have to talk about it. And we can make all the grammar Nazi jokes. I am a serial offender. I correct John's grammar all the time.
Thank you for that.
I am surprised he hasn't smacked me yet.
But to that point, Jason, because you have that talent and I don't, or that skill and I don't, I don't. It took me a while to man up to that, and appreciate you in the most friendly manner correcting me when I say something wrong. But I'm learning, and that's the thing. Is what I take that as an opportunity to perfect myself. That okay, yes, I said that wrong. How can I improve?
Historian versus engineer.
That's a fight to the death right there.
You're gonna school me in the mathematics episode at some point in time.
All right.
So that's all we've got for social media tonight. But we'll post some really interesting show notes, so please go check out the website. They'll be up by tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You know why we didn't have a lot of social media participation?
They were worried I'd correct their grammar.
Yeah, people were afraid they were gonna. Like, does that comma go there? Oh, forget it. I'm not gonna write anything.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've gone on about this for a while, but there's much more we could cover. But with that, let's start wrapping up, going once around with shameless plugs and final thoughts. Let's begin in no particular order with Nick Johnson. You've been kind of quiet tonight.
Oh, I have been.
Hey, you moved to Super Soaker.
I did. Oh, watch out. Max, a 3000. Boom.
That's a classic.
Oh, it is. It's beautiful, isn't it? Let me tell you, of all the armaments I have, that's the best one. But anyway, my final thought is, our ritual, for the most part, comes from William Preston. And one thing that is often quoted is that he was apprenticed with William Strahan, who was at that time the king's printer. So in England, it's one of those that one guy gets to have the right over words, essentially printed words at that time, right? And the Stamp Act and all that other stuff was pretty much involved in that. And so Preston was able to take in so much information, and I think it makes sense that our own ritual is so grammatically superior is just because he was able to be introduced to so many different written works. And so I think grammar is essential to speaking clearly, to having yourself understood, and I think Masonry is really good about that. It's like Toastmasters, only not Toastmasters. So, but anyway, my name is Nick Johnson. I have this blog called millennialfreemason.com. That's 2 L's, 2 N's. I know some people were getting freaked out about that. I promise I'm gonna have something coming up someday. But thanks again, guys, for all of your support for our show. I think this has been a really good topic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Technically, Nick, it's 3 L's. Just not all together.
Yeah.
Boom.
There goes the grammar Nazi. Okay. Speaking of, Jason, why don't you
Thanks,
your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I've already expressed my final thoughts. Grammar is foundational to everything we do as men, as Masons, as people who are trying to build community. You cannot have community without self-expression. You cannot have positive, constructive self-expression without a foundational knowledge of grammar in the classical sense. Learn it, love it. Don't use apostrophes for plural. Seriously. My name is Jason Richards. I've got a blog. It's right down here somewhere. 2-foot ruler, Masonry in plain language. Again, the grammar is coming out. It's just an attempt to break down the complex ideas and ideals to which we hold as men and Masons into easily understandable, easily digestible pieces. And I'll have something new up at some point. I've got a couple things I'm working on for the Midnight Freemasons as well. Check them out. They are fantastic. I'm one of their regular contributors. Once I contribute something else at some point. I don't know if I qualify as regular contributor quite yet.
Yeah,
yeah.
Inaugural.
A single data point does not a trend make.
Oh.
However, it does make a statement.
Oh.
So getting back to grammar. Thank you guys so much. I will be in Huntsville, Alabama next week, so I may have some dodgy internet access, but I'm very excited because I'm going to be hanging out with the good brothers of Apollo Lodge number 921 on Wednesday, so I can't wait to meet all those guys and just have some great fun and fellowship. With that, I'll sign off. Back to you guys.
Great. I'd love to see you write a blog post on grammar, since you are kind of the resident expert here. Think about it.
I accept that challenge. It's
Excellent.
better than dumping ice all over my head.
Dump conjugated verbs all over your head. All right, let's see. Brother Juan.
All right. Well, this was an interesting topic. I enjoyed it. I of course cannot claim that I am the best grammarian in the land, but if anybody out there feels restricted or is not allowing himself to write or speak in public because he doesn't feel he is the best grammarian, don't let that stop you. I mean, everybody, like I read in a book today, everybody is a fourth grader to a third grader. Remember when you were in third grade, you thought the fourth graders were the most awesome kids ever. I can't believe how fast they can run and how high they can climb. You know, you're gonna be there. Oh, but it just takes little steps in order for you to get there. So just don't hold back. If you feel you have it inside of you to write or to speak, do so. You know, try to seek opportunities in order to do that to help you develop yourself further. Talking about writing, the MasonicRoundtable.com. Visit it, favorite it, share it, love it, and when you go to the show notes, so click on the links that we're sharing there for you. Make sure you add a comment to the different posts. Let us know what you think. You know, what experiences have you had with grammar in the past? Do you have pet peeves? I'm sure you do. No apostrophes for S's, right, Jason?
No apostrophes for plurals.
There you go. So I'm sure everybody has a pet peeve in grammar. One of the most popular posts I put on thewindingstairs.com was about that. You know, what's your biggest pet peeve? And people went bananas about what people wrote. So, you know, participate. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, and also let us know what you think on iTunes. Finally, on thewindingstairs.com, tomorrow you should have a new episode 20, which should wrap up the series of Bridging the Gap. I'm really excited about it. So make sure you listen to it. Go to thewindingstairs.com and download it tomorrow.
Great. Thanks, Juan.
Thank you.
Robert Johnson.
Well, closing on grammar. Being what some would call an editor for a writing website, I do a pretty poor job of it. I get emails from Right Worshipful Brother Michael Shirley telling me what's going on with the post every once in a while. I appreciate that. He has the highest. He is the biggest grammar guy I know because he's been teaching it for so long, and he holds Jason in very high regard because he didn't want to jump through a computer and rewrite his post on midnight.
Single data point.
Yeah. You know, I love there's so many grammar things that you could talk about. You know, you've got Jason's apostrophes with plural, ending sentences with prepositions, the endless debate over the Oxford comma, the dangling participles, all these kind of odd things. I say use them all. Just put commas everywhere.
Everywhere.
Write like you're William Shatner.
Yeah, right. I was gonna call it the Shatner comma, right?
Okay. But you know, just surrounding yourself with guys who know this kind of stuff, like Jason Richards, Michael Shirley. Those guys are endless resources. We have a scholars club that meets in my district, and one of the guys actually teaches us the proper way to write research papers and things of that nature. So if you've got somebody like that, use them as a resource. Don't feel like you're going back to school. Utilize them. because that's all I have to say about grammar. I just wanted to quickly say we are caught up to date. We'll be up to date on iTunes. As of tomorrow, this episode will also be up on iTunes as well.
Sweet.
And everybody out there made it happen too.
This is true. Through all the pin sales and the donations, we got to increase our bandwidth to get caught up, and it's just been fantastic. Jason, again, great point when he was talking about. I want to go back to grammar. I forgot this. Explaining the ritual and the grammar to the candidates is essential. If you can do it because it takes it from kind of meaningless jargon to an actual story that they can put together in a linear fashion. Even it works really well. If you guys like Masonic podcasts, of course, check out Whence Came You on iTunes, on Stitcher, everywhere else, wcypodcast.com, and hopefully by the end of the month we will have the Masonic Radio Theater on its own show. So thanks for listening, thanks for the donations, and thanks for everything, everybody.
Great. Thanks. As for my final thoughts, again, I've joked about being an engineer before and joked about the math stuff that is better for me, but yes, grammar is a challenge for me. I do stutter, I do stumble over my words a lot, but I'm trying, right? I'm trying to improve, and I think that's the biggest obstacle I had to come over was realizing that just because I'm not good at it doesn't mean I shouldn't try. And that, again, having a great resource like Jason that will kindly correct me and try to improve, my communication. I've sent things for him to proofread. That's one of the reasons it takes me a while to write a blog article or a research paper, is because I have a hard time, as you can tell, trying to synthesize information and portray it in a succinct and logical way. And definitely having someone to help with that will get you there. So take that as an opportunity. We are trying to take good men and make them better in Masonry. That also applies to their grammar. I would like to hold all the other Masons listening, watching, to take that forward when they do Facebook posts, when they do emails. Take a second and try to write what you're trying to convey in a much clearer, much articulate, much more grammatically correct manner. Because we're representing the craft every time any words come out of our mouth, any words get put on paper. So try to increase your grammatical skills while you do that. With that, I also wanted to give a shout out to Brother Juan. I got my copy of his past master print. It's beautiful.
Ooh.
Definitely check it out at freemasonryart.com. And with that, thank you for your donations. Tell your friends, share us, like us, support us, buy a pin. We will have pins for sale at the symposium, and maybe a couple other surprises. So we'll see you there at the symposium on the 20th. And with that, thanks for watching, and keep searching for more light. Good night.